I've had, and it's been really kind of uncanny. I've had several people over the past few months all come to me for advice on how to handle various disputes, personal disputes or business disputes, disputes between, like, they're running a company and they have a dispute with a contractor, a supplier, a partner, or whatever. And I found myself repeating the same advice, and people were like, wow, I never thought about it like that. And so I just wrote it down, and I figured I would talk about it in this video. And Ryan, I'm sure from your experience in business with me, you definitely saw some of this stuff getting used.
Mm-hmm.
And so you might have some better perspective on it than me, from that perspective anyway. So yeah, interrupt me anytime, basically.
Okay.
Okay, so I have some steps, and I don't know how many steps there are. Maybe like 15, but that may be too detailed. So we'll see.
Simple 15-step process. All right.
Just 15. Don't worry about it. No. Somebody asked a question. What was it? How do you prep? How do I prep? Or are you asking somebody else in the comments? That's a whole other video. Food, fuel, and guns. There. That's a good summary for now.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah.
Food, fuel, and guns. Woo!
That's a tradition right there.
Damn right.
All right. So people have come to me, and I'm not going to use any of the specific situations because I haven't asked them for permission. So we'll make up a story. So let's say you're running a business and you had an agreement with a supplier to deliver a product in exchange for X amount of money, and after they supplied their product and you paid them, they said, "Hey, we agreed that you pay me more than you paid me, so I need more money. You owe me more money now." That just as an example. The first thing you need to do in any dispute, and this could be with an individual, a personal relationship, a friend, or a business, or anything. The first thing you do is you evaluate where you currently stand. You evaluate the security of your current position, the power and leverage that you have in the dispute. And what I mean by that is like in the example I just gave, where you've paid them, they've given you the product, and now they want more money. You're in the power position in that example because, like, unless they're going to use force, you don't have to do anything. Like, you don't have to go out and go give them money. It's not like they already have your money and now you're begging them to give you the product that you already paid for. That's the opposite. Now you're in the weak position. So understanding, thinking about, and recognizing where you stand, which side of that are you equal? Are you in the power position or the weak position? And then the next one is to accept the reality of that situation, good or bad. Come to terms with it until you can proceed through the dispute dispassionately. Handling, especially with money, but this could go with anything. Handling disputes dispassionately is the most valuable piece of advice I can give you. So as part of this evaluation process, you have to start by working through the emotions, understanding what your actual current situation is, coming to terms with it, sort of from a stoic perspective, accepting where you are, so that now you can proceed through the dispute without anger, emotion, angst, anxiety, whatever. Then, this is another one that a lot of people don't think about. Because a lot of people, when they enter disputes like this, they will stamp their foot on principle. And they'll be like, well, it's the principle of the matter that, I thought we agreed, or I agreed to pay this, and he agreed to give me that, and now he's wanting more money. It's the principle of the matter. Hell no, I'm not. No matter what, I'm not. He's not, that's not right. That's bullshit. I'm not giving him any more money. That's not always the right decision. What you have to do, and this part happens all the time, especially in business, but it would certainly happen personally as well. the next step is to evaluate the value of the relationship with the other person or company or business partner or supplier, or even an employee. Each of your relationships that you have has a value attached to it. It could be extremely valuable. Like your whole company could depend on a relationship with a specific supplier. So in that case, the value of that relationship is sky high. On the other hand, if this is the first time you've ever interacted with somebody, there's a bunch of competitors, you don't really need them that much, and they're demanding more money that, isn't something you agreed to, the value of that relationship's pretty much zero, pretty low. And so that should be part of also your equation that you work out is, aside from the immediate dispute, like even forget the whole immediate dispute, that relationship might have value that would make it worth conceding a little bit or compromising a little bit. Even if that's not, even if you would be in the right to walk away and not give them a dime, you might harm or lose that relationship over it. So again, from a dispassionate standpoint, put a value on the relationship. If it's in business and we're talking about money, then put a dollar value on the relationship and factor that in to your decision about what to do next and how to handle the situation. The next piece of advice is kind of the obvious one. What kind of contract did you have with the person? Hopefully it was written so that you have evidence of exactly what was said. Look, if I'm making, there is not a single money agreement that I'll make not a single. There are very few money agreements I will make that does not have a written component that states what has been agreed to. And if I have a verbal agreement with somebody on any kind of important transaction, after we talk through it and after we have that verbal agreement and we agree, I say, okay, I'm going to go write all this down and I'm going to send it to you. And if you could just read over it to make sure that I'm thinking the same thing you are, and just send me a quick note saying, yeah, that's what we agreed. So you take it and you put it into writing and you get their agreement and their consent to it. Anything important involving money should always have a written record. And this is like the easy, especially if you're working or dealing with friends, this is the easy one to ignore, but it will resolve disputes. So if you care about the friendship, you want to put it in writing so that you can resolve the dispute easier and preserve the relationship, because without it, it's a he said, she said thing. It's mushy. It's language. It's memory. All these things are terrible. And you might harm the friendship by not having done it. Any thoughts so far before I keep going? I'm just talking.
Yeah, I would say that with a written contract, also it can enforce leaving the emotions out of the discussion as well, because there's not much leeway. There's not much like back and forth that you can even discuss and get like enraged or charged up about, because it was all agreed to beforehand.
Yeah.
It won't get as dirty and messy, especially if you want to try and preserve a friendship. That's important.
Yeah. So then the next step is to, if they're raising the dispute, then all you do is you ask for the evidence of your agreement to be obligated to resolve or to do whatever they're demanding that you do. So if they're demanding more money, what you do is you say, oh, okay, I could be wrong. I could have misremembered. Please provide me the proof of our agreement that, where I agreed to do the thing you're asking me to do. This sounds like obvious stuff, but people don't think about it. Like, you don't respond by getting mad. You don't respond by deny, and asserting that you were right and they're wrong. Put the ball in their court. Hey, show me the evidence where I agreed to that. And if you can show that to me to my satisfaction, then I will make this right now and you will have my apology. And the same thing in the other direction. If it's you and you're sort of initiating the dispute, then your initial message should contain that evidence. Hey, you were supposed to pay me X instead of X. Here's a copy of our agreement, or here's a screenshot of the text message where you agreed to that arrangement. And, can we make this right, please? Do you have any questions on this? I think it's pretty clear. Here's the evidence. It might also be good to state your dispute in the form of a question. Either way, whether you're responding to their dispute or making the dispute yourself, if you state it in the form of a question like, hey, I could have something wrong here. Can you show me like what I've missed? I'm looking at this text message where I was looking over our agreement, and it says that you agreed to pay me X amount instead of X amount, which is what you gave me. So like, what am I missing here? Help me out. I need help figuring this out. That kind of approach will get you a lot farther. Crazy Pete says handshake contracts are the best. Sadly, nobody has that kind of honor, and I have many handshake agreements, and it's good mostly. Written BS is just annoying. Sadly, there are always assholes, and I lose money on them, but mostly it's fine. Man, I hard disagree. Language is so messy. Language, yes. Like verbal communication is so subjective and so messy. What were you about to say?
I said, yeah, I was saying yes. That's why whenever you read a contract, it reads strangely because it's written in a way that makes it very clear. It doesn't sound like you're having a discussion with the person. It's written in a way to make it so that it's very clear what terms are being exchanged.
It's the clarity and it's the freezing it in time. Like if you're going to do it verbally, at least record the conversation. I think that's still probably a messy way to do it, but have a record of the conversation that you're going to have a verbal agreement on so that you can, again, go back and reference it and have evidence of your agreement when the disputes arise. There's nothing dishonorable about that. It clarifies arrangements and it clarifies, it protects the relationships when you take those extra steps to verify what you agreed to. And it also clarifies the type of person you're working with. So like if you have record of the agreement and the person doesn't do what they agreed to do, and you show them the evidence and ask them to perform whatever they agreed to, and they don't, well, they're giving you truth, and we'll get to that in a minute. The next tip is that once the dispute begins, all communication should be recorded, most likely in text or email or some method that you can record, capture, screenshot, have record of. Once a dispute has started, don't just have off-the-record verbal discussions. You want everything explicit and well-stated and out in the open where you can reference in the future. Crazy Pete, here, I'll give this one to you, Ryan. Crazy Pete says, written contracts are upheld by the government, so if you don't like government, how the hell can you agree to written contracts? Take it away.
How can you have contracts without government?
That was the question. Yeah.
That is the question. Because I guess, in an idealized world, in a perfect world, you would have some form of a organization that a third party that would uphold the terms of the contract that you can turn to if anything within the contract goes bad. If one of the parties does not uphold their agreement. I think that contract law, or just contracts in general, are a good thing and can be separated from the government, and are just extremely important to just daily activities and daily projects and companies that anything that you want to accomplish.
Yeah, it's the same argument when you talk to people about, and they're like, how will the roads get built without government? It's the same thing. How will contracts work without government? The same way they work now. It's just without the guns and coercion and violent threats of government. People will still need to make agreements. Look, a contract is not a magical word that means government. Contract is an agreement. You can have a verbal contract. It's an agreement for the exchange of property. That's probably the best definition of contract is an agreement for an exchange of property ownership. Usually in exchange for some consideration, either different property, swapping hands, or you are agreeing to do some sort of work or service in exchange for a transfer of property. That's all it is. Government has nothing to do with that. You can certainly have agreements with people absent government.
Yeah, it's just tainted because usually the authority that upholds contracts now is the Department of Justice or whatever in your location. But that is totally not necessary to uphold contracts.
Okay. Let's see. So yeah, make sure all your communications during the dispute are written down and recorded. And then once you've kind of started the dispute, it's your job, again, because we're already in the dispassionate frame of mind, it's your job to wargame. I call it wargaming. All of the possible outcomes. You're going to say this. You predict they're going to say that and do that. And in that scenario, what's your plan? Okay, now let's say that you say this and then they do that. What's your plan? Now let's say you do this and then they might, because they're crazy, do this, this, and this. What's your plan? Think through each of those outcomes, because that allows you to maintain the dispassionate, calm, tranquil, rational position no matter what happens. And it also alleviates the fear of what might come. So if you know what all of your options are and you know which chess moves you can predict what chess moves they might make in response. And then it's your moment again to come to terms with that outcome. Well, if I do this and they do that, that will be the outcome. Am I okay with that outcome? Is there something I can do to maybe to result in a different outcome? Figure out what outcome you're shooting for. Accept the outcomes that you might not be ready for. Accept that those are possibilities, and then have a plan for how to handle that outcome. Another good Stoic phrase is the obstacle becomes the way. The impediment to action leads to action. So you take something, what's another version of it? Things thrown before the fire become fuel for the fire. They make it burn brighter. So take the obstacles, the things in your way, and find a way to make them work out for the best. And then do that ahead of time so that you're already ready when they actually happen. That's the wargaming phase. Go ahead. That's
literally the title of the book, The Obstacle is the Way. It's a book by Ryan Holiday. It's pretty good. Yeah.
Really? Ryan Holiday? Who's that?
Yeah. Ryan Holiday is a Stoic writer. He's written several Stoic books.
I'm looking it up right now.
Okay. Yeah, that's the title. The Obstacle is the Way. That's the title of the book.
Ryan Holiday. All right, I'm going to have to look this guy up. That's cool. All right, yeah.
He's out of Austin, Texas, too.
And look, that's going to wrap us back around to what we were talking about with culture. This is the stuff that we're forgetting right now. We're forgetting how to handle ourselves, how to predict the future, plan ahead, accept the reality of the situation that we're in, deal with it in control and dispassionately instead of reactionary and emotional and anger. Like, the worst thing you can do in any dispute is to be angry and emotional, right?
I was going to say that you are not going to find a good resolution to a problem if you go into the discussion angry. It's going to lead to something very bad.
I wrote something down in my bullet journal. Donald Robertson says, anger makes you do stupid things faster and with more energy.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm talking about. You got to eliminate that. And these are the tools that I think our culture is forgetting. We're not caring about these obvious points of wisdom that have been passed down, and we're headed right back towards the Dark Age, just like the last Dark Age. So the one takeaway recommendation for all of you: study the Stoics. Like, they don't have a from first principles moral philosophy, but that is almost a technicality, because everything else that they talk about is some of the most valuable life advice that I've ever encountered.
It's a practical philosophy. It's something that you can apply to your life from the moment you start reading it. It's very good.
Yes. Okay. So the next one is, kind of as you're wargaming, think about every single statement that you make to the other person and have a clear goal in advance for the communication that you're making. Every single statement that you make, every email that you send, every text message that you send, before you send it, compare that statement to the outcome that you want from that statement. Will the statement you're about to send help me achieve the goal, or will it hurt me or do nothing? If it's going to hurt you achieving your goal, obviously don't send it. If it's going to do nothing, probably don't send that either. You want you want sort of like a minimalism. You want to send the stuff that will help you achieve your goal. This eliminates the emotion. This eliminates the snarky replies, the comebacks, the clapbacks, the things that might make your opponent angry, because chances are, if you say something that makes them angry, whatever goal you're trying to achieve gets farther away. So examine every single statement in email. And this goes for business deals big time. Like, sometimes we will just not respond for a day while we do nothing but consider our options and plan what we're going to say so that, we maintain the relationship or we get the thing that we need or whatever. You have to be rigorous about that. Only communicate things that get to the heart of the dispute and that assist in the resolution that you're wanting. Now, it's time to loop back around to the value of the relationship. In the beginning, you put a value on the relationship. Now, once you're wargaming strategies for what to do in the dispute, how valuable is the relationship? If it is low value and you're in the power position, you can walk away. You might ought to walk away. Because, and we'll talk about that in a minute, if the relationship is high value and you're in the power position, you might want to compromise. You might want to think of, a middle ground to maintain the relationship that's valuable to you. And this goes for personal relationships as well, as business relationships. Concessionary compromise gifts are a good idea sometimes. There were certain times in business with, you remember that company that supplied those things that we needed for that one company, and they were constantly, Ryan, you remember they were constantly causing drama, but that was the entire business. Without them, we wouldn't have had a company almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we were constantly making sort of concessions and watching our words carefully, and we could have stood on principle, and we would have stood on principle all the way to the end of the company. So it's okay sometimes. It's okay to let's say they're demanding $1,000 that and you can prove you don't owe them, but it's a valuable relationship. Maybe, hey, look, you haven't shown me the evidence that shows that I owe you $1,000, but look, our relationship, our partnership is valuable to me, so I want to compromise. I'd like to offer you $250 instead, or something like that. That's kind of the principle I'm trying to get at. Now, as you're participating in the war games, as the war games are rolling out, watch for meta truth. And I don't say watch for truth because people will take that too literally, and they'll think that I'm talking about, watch to see them, catch them in a lie. I'm not talking about that. I mean, yeah, watch for lies, obviously. What I'm talking about is watch their behavior, because they should be doing these same things on their end. They should know, even if they're not thinking about it, they feel how valuable your relationship with them is to them. And their actions will communicate that to you. How they deal with you in return will tell you how much they value you. You need to be watching for that. If they respond with confusing language, vague language, don't really directly answer your questions, if you feel like you're having to pry information or pull information out of them, that is a meta truth that you need to watch. They are not being straightforward and above board and honest with you. That is a meta truth that you need to watch for. And then once you have these meta truths, you need to loop them back into your valuation of the relationship. Do you want to be in a relationship with somebody that doesn't want to be straightforward with you, that wants you to make you pull information out of them? Do you want to be in a relationship with somebody that doesn't value the relationship? And that's kind of the next tip, is that you need to stay away from unbalanced value in relationships. And this goes for personal and business and everything. If it is entirely one way, if you care deeply about a person, or if you value greatly a relationship with a business partner, and that partner or that person doesn't give a shit about you, doesn't care about that relationship, you are almost enslaving yourself to that person. They can so easily use you. In fact, they probably already are using you. They're probably already taking advantage of you. So run from, escape, get out of relationships that are totally one-sided, where you value them and they don't value you. And hell, like if you see yourself in a relationship with somebody else and you don't value it, and you know that they've got a lot of they care deeply about it and they're investing, you got to be careful. You probably want to back out of that too, because you might you might take advantage of them even inadvertently. You don't want to be the user or the used, right? You have any thoughts, Ryan? I'm just talking forever. I'm sorry. I invited you on the show and then I don't let you talk at all.
It's a lot of points to get through, so I mean, no, I have nothing. I mean, like you said, I was kind of secondary to any of these business discussions going on.
Yeah.
But it's good advice for anything going on in my future endeavors.
Yep. And the last thing I'll say, this is another Stoic. This is another lesson from the Stoics. And this is the last one. We'll stop here. Remember that any pain you feel when you are injured, when you are wronged, when you are deceived, when you're cheated on, that pain is not coming from the other person. That disappointment, that anger is not coming from the other person. It's coming from the gap between reality and what you thought was reality. You thought you were dealing with a trustworthy person. You thought you were dealing with somebody that wouldn't cheat on you or lie to you. Reality was you were dealing with somebody that would do those things. There's a gap between reality and your expectations. That is where the pain comes from. And that's why it's so important to keep a clear head on your shoulder when you're dealing with people, to make sure that your perceptions are as aligned with reality as completely possible. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's all I got on disputes. I hope
and weighing all options, because hopefully whenever you weighed all your options, that was one of the simulations that came to your mind, was that this person is just a complete shithead and their only objective is to fuck you over. So whenever that does present itself as reality, it's not as surprising to you.
Yeah. And that's just like, again, Stoics. That's not me. I didn't invent that. That's straight out of ancient Greek, guys. Like, if you weren't taught that, man, people should be taught that. Make sure, if you have kids, teach them this stuff. This is major life-changing, life-improving advice. Make sure that your expectations line up with reality. Like, don't let people pull the blinders over your eyes. Don't trust people without verifying that they're trustworthy. If you just blindly trust people, you're going to get used and damaged and broken, and you're going to think the other person is, bad things will happen. That is all.
Bad.
Bad happens. Bad. Yeah, the pain comes from the gap between your expectations and reality. That's the Stoic tip.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that you only have yourself to blame, because if the other person's actually done something wrong, yeah, you can blame them for doing the wrong thing. I'm talking about the inner battle that you go through, the pain that you feel when you're deceived. That is on you. You are responsible for that. Like, if you knew somebody was a liar and you chose to interact with them and they lied to you, would that even be surprising, much less disturbing, or would it cause you, angst? No, you knew they were a liar when you started talking to them. But if you thought somebody wasn't a liar and you interacted with them and they lied to you, then you'd be like, God, I'm so angry, or I'm so sad, or whatever. That's what I'm talking about. It's about what happens inside.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, that's what I wanted to talk about. Do you have anything you wanted to chat about?
That was not sort of the conflict I was thinking that you would go over, but that is good, because I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who are trying to start up their own business endeavor and are coming across these problems. So that's great. I thought it was more personal conflicts. I had a lot of personal conflicts with specific people and companies from really shitty people. And so I was just going to bring up to people to literally look up the definition of passive aggressive, because you might not know what it actually means.
I'm going to do that right now.
Yeah, just look it up and see what behaviors are associated with passive aggressiveness. See if you do any of that with people that you're in conflict with, and try and stop it and try and remove it from your life, because it does not solve anything. It makes things a lot worse. Yeah, and I found out through some conflicts I had with people that I was extremely passive aggressive with them, and it would have been better if I was more direct in solving my problems with them.
Interesting.
For me internally and externally with other people as well.
Let me read some of this, and you can tell me if I've missed anything from this article. Recognizing passive-aggressive behaviors. Do you often find yourself sulking when you are unhappy with somebody else? Do you avoid people with whom you are upset? Do you ever stop talking to people when you are angry at them? Do you put off doing things as a way to punish others? Interesting. Do you sometimes use sarcasm to avoid engaging in meaningful conversation? Was there anything that you were thinking of that didn't mention? I don't know that I agree with some of those.
Some of them were definitely spot on, for sure.
Well, what kinds of things were you talking about?
Definitely avoiding people that you're having issues with. It's a lot of like talking behind their back, and like just pretending like there isn't something there. It's pretending like there isn't a conflict or something there. Even right in front of their face. It's like you're smiling through your teeth, that kind of shit. I just found that if I had directly, because with the person that I was having issues with, we were literally being passive aggressive to each other. So it was two people being passive aggressive to each other. And if I had initiated a more direct approach with them, then they would have had to try and resolve it with me at that point. Whereas it was totally unresolved for an extended period of time, which just deteriorated everything over time, and it caused a big issue.
Yeah, I even wrote this in my bullet journal this morning. Like, procrastination has cost me more than just about any other bad habit, and that's a big part of what you're talking about with passive aggressiveness. Like, I was just at the car dealership. My car's in the shop right now because I didn't get an alignment that I knew I needed 2 years ago. And so it chewed up the inside of both of my front tires. $600. Yeah. Boom, gone. 2 front tires and an alignment job. $600. If I had the alignment, it would have been $120, and it would have been a little time out of my day to get the alignment done. And I would still have tires for another 40,000 miles or 60,000 miles or whatever, And I wrote down in my journal that, hey, today, procrastination cost me $600. And when it comes to conflict with people, I am often accused of being too aggressive. Maybe that's not the word. Assertive? Confrontational. Yes. If I have a disagreement with somebody, I just say it right then when I am thinking about it to their face immediately. And you know what? I probably don't do it in, the biggest problem I have is I don't always wait until the moment is private enough. Like I might forget and do it in front of other people, and that does cause problems. That's bad. But I don't like that. I don't like putting off conflict with people. Number one, yeah. So from a stoic perspective, I have already decided if whatever I'm having a dispute with a person about is worse than the relationship is valuable to me, and if it's a really egregious thing that they've done or whatever, then I will do some of these things. I'll ghost people because it's not even worth arbitrating the dispute with them. Like it was too bad. But if it's not that, then I engage immediately because I don't like that long running drama that you're talking about. There's so many things This is one of the things I'm working on right now with my self sort of work and my habits every day right now. Is I have a backlog. The past 3 years I've been dealing with Dagny's medical condition has been such an emotional thing that rather than confronting a bunch of problems that I've had, I've put them off. And now I've got like a 3-year backlog of really uncomfortable things that I've ignored for years. And you'd think when you like distract yourself and ignore the bad things that, you know, it puts them out of mind and they just kind of go away until you're ready to deal with them. But that's not how it works. They weigh on your psyche constantly. There's a weight on your shoulders that maybe you don't even consciously know, but it's there. And so now that I'm going through my backlog, and it's excruciating to have to catch up for all the things I've put off and the procrastination that's happened, that it's making me like super committed to just not procrastinating on anything anymore. Conflicts, agreements, you know, downsides, whatever. I'm trying to be way more proactive with this stuff.
Yeah. I can see like the not waiting until it's a private situation to bring up the issue as a negative. But I think that people will just generically say that the confrontation that you're presenting is bad because it's uncomfortable for them. That's why they see it as a negative. But really, I think that you got to bring it all out on the table in order to get it resolved.
Yeah. Because
I was trying to solve the issue by not bringing up the issue, and it does not work. It literally doesn't work. Don't try it. It's not going to work. It's not going to work out for you.
So, like, what do we tell an introvert? What is an introvert supposed to do? Because I don't know this. I can't empathize well with this. I can't put myself in these shoes because I'm pretty extroverted. So, like, are you familiar with introverted people much? Do you know like advice to give them?
I honestly would say some of those steps that you brought up would be a great place to start, because if you do run the scenarios of the possible outcomes in your mind, you will not be hurt as much if those outcomes are what reality is. Like you are always going to be wondering what's going to happen, and most likely your mind is going to lead you to the worst possible outcome, and then you're going to feel that pain over and over again. But if you think of all outcomes, then you'll be ready for the negative ones, and you'll also be ready for the positive ones. And if you get to that point where you bring up the issue with the person, at least you'll be better prepared.
And I'm surprised nobody in the comments has mentioned nonviolent communication, because I had a rant ready.
That's true.
For them if they did.
Right.
Oh man. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I hope some of that was helpful. I hope at least the advice on how to handle disputes helps people, because all of that stuff was not handed to me. That was like hard lessons learned over time. Don't
take time out of your day, of whatever you're thinking about, worrying about things that you can't change. That's also one big thing that Stoics talk about, is don't dwell on things that you can't change, because you can't change them. Only worry about things that you can change.
Yeah. Pull the levers that you can pull and stop worrying about the rest. That's almost like maybe the first rule of Stoicism.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, worry about what you can change. Yep.
Two big things is worry about what you can change, and only you can have your feelings hurt. No one can hurt your feelings. Only you can have your feelings hurt.
And people asked me over the past 3 years when I was going through this with Dagny, how I kept myself straight, and that was the main thing that did it. There was a whole lot over the past 3 years that I had no control over and could not change with her treatment, and what could have happened with the cancer diagnosis, right? Like that's a massive thing that I can't even begin to affect, really, beyond just making sure that she has the best medical care that I can make sure that she has. And now it's all up to the doctors and the process and how her body handles it, and how susceptible the cancer is to the treatments and all that stuff. Like that whole thing was out of my head. And the one thing I did well over the past 3 years was not worry about trying to affect those things. I recognized up front, and this was in part some advice I got from my brother, actually. Like, there was trust the doctors, worry about the things I could worry about, like spending time with her, doing cool things with her, making sure that she was loved, and the things that I could do were the things that I focused on. And focusing on the things that you can do feels great because you're able to actually affect change on the things that you can affect change on. So when you focus on those, it's good. It's good.
Yeah. If you could have done, and you did, if you could have done things that made her positive and happy, that's gonna help in the long run, and that's stuff that you can actually actively do with her. So, yeah, for sure.
And I was able to do better at those things because I wasn't bummed out about worrying about the things I couldn't change. It was
definitely, yeah.
It was huge.
Yeah, your day and your mind wasn't backlogged by things that you couldn't have an effect of.